Hello everyone, I'm Nicky Illsley. I'm a psychotherapist and hypnotherapist, and I'm making this video because of course we can't go to the Swift meeting tonight. So I'm going to do my 5-minute business showcase now. I'm a psychotherapist and hypnotherapist, and I work with adults and children with a whole variety of issues. But what I specialise in is helping people who've experienced trauma to recover from it fully and be able to get their lives back. Many of us experience trauma or a traumatic incident in our lives, and it's always difficult and distressing at the time. But 80 to 90% of us will be able to come to terms with it over time and process that trauma and move on with our lives. But for 10 to 20% of people, the trauma causes more problems than that and can lead to post-traumatic stress disorder. What's happening there is that the memory of trauma is lodged in the hippocampus, which is a part of the brain that deals with new learning and current experiences. For example, right now, if you're listening to this video, watching this video, that's your current experience and you're learning something about me. Your hippocampus will be processing that information and deciding whereabouts to store it in the brain, and it will send it from itself to another storage file, like perhaps one called things that I need to remember or things that I can forget. If the trauma stays in the hippocampus though, the memory remains vivid and the brain and the body feel as if it's a current experience. And that gives rise to a whole host of physiological and psychological symptoms like flashbacks, nightmares, depression, severe anxiety and panic, difficulty sleeping, anger issues, relationship problems, phobias. The brain and the body's alarm systems become recalibrated and they're super sensitive, as if, just like, for example, if you have a smoke alarm and it goes off when the toast is just starting to get brown. And to manage that pain and that difficulty and distress, many people who have experienced trauma will turn to using drugs and alcohol to help cope with it, and that of course becomes a whole other issue in its own right. Or they'll engage in other behaviours like self-harm or isolating themselves. Now, to recover from trauma, we ultimately need to get to the point where we can tell our story without it taking us back into the trauma. And that's the healing process that I help clients with. And it involves a number of stages, working with both the body and the mind together. Both are very affected, to process the trauma. First of all, though, it's really important to kind of calm down those alarm systems, because until they've calmed down, there's no sort of thinking or processing able to happen. I'm guessing that most of us will be able to identify with a time when we felt some high level of anxiety in our lives. And what's happening there when that's happening to us is that our survival brain, or our amygdala as it's called, is fired up and floods our body with hormones to get us ready to fight or run away. It also, in that process, shuts down the thinking brain, the rational brain with the language centres, because we have to be able to act really quickly. Clients that have got post-traumatic stress disorder are experiencing that all the time. Now, I teach many self-help techniques to help give clients just a little bit of a sense of control, actually. And I just want to share a very quick one with you now. It's the beginning of a self-help technique, really. When you're feeling anxious, imagine a scale that goes from 0 at one end to 10 at the other end. Where 0 is the most chilled you can possibly imagine being, and 10 is the most anxious that you can possibly imagine being. And when you're feeling anxious, give yourself a score. Rate that anxiety somewhere along that scale. And for many people, it'll be somewhere between 6 and 9 when they're feeling very anxious. Now, doing that does two things for you. First of all, it gives you a little bit of distance. It takes you outside of the emotion just a tiny bit so that you can look at it objectively. And secondly, it fires up the rational brain again. So the brain, the thinking brain that was shut down, gets started up again, and you can then begin to override that survival instinct. And of course, I go on to show clients different ways of helping them to reduce that level of anxiety. But there you go, that's my business showcase. Please feel free to contact me anytime if there's anything that you want to talk about. It's been really nice to talk to you. Thank you very much.